Hello, Bagby Barracudas. I hope you enjoyed the video introducing the work of Georges Seurat, who was an artist that used the style called Pointillism for painting, and that is using the point of a brush to paint with dots. Here's an example of his most famous painting. This is a Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte. And it took him 2 years to paint it, so this is actually a really huge painting. Here's another example of a pointillism painting. It's a tree, little landscape that's done all in dots. So, in your art kit, you should have these supplies. You should have a set of paints, and you might need to have help from an adult to help you open some of these lids. I found them a little tricky to open myself. And if you'd like, you can set them out this way, and I found that I can even use this part here to get the paint out instead of dipping all the way in. I've been taking the paint out of the lids. So you have a set of paints. You have some Q-tips. What I'll have you notice about this is we're going to use these as our paintbrushes because they make nice little dots. But they have two sides, so you can use one color on one side and turn it around and use the other color on the other side. So you have quite a few little paintbrushes. You have two little pieces of paper, and the reason we're using small little pieces of paper is that it can take a lot of time to do a whole painting with dots. So we're going to start with a small piece, so it's something that we can finish from beginning to end. But if you really like this style, I know you'll have lots of paint left over, and you should be able to make even bigger pieces if you want to continue practicing in the pointillism style later on. You also have a glue stick, and you have a black piece of paper. When you finish your work and the paint is dry, you can use your glue stick to put glue on the back of your painting and mount your painting on this little black paper to make a frame. And this is one that I did earlier. This is a tiny little landscape, kind of copying a little bit of the style of this painting, which is we've got a little bit of grass, we've got a tree, we've got a sailboat in the water, we've got some mountains back here. So there is a style of pointillism, and we're going to end up with something like this. So I'm going to help you do this, and then I'm also going to show you how to do a little still life. If you like, you can watch me from beginning to end and then do it on your own, depending on which one you want to make, or you can make both, or you can play the video and do it step by step with me and just pause the video by hitting the space bar when you need a little extra time to finish the step that I'm on. And finally, you have a piece of newsprint paper. And the reason you have this is painting can be a little messy, and we want to paint all the way out to the edge of our paper. And the best thing to do is to paint on this newsprint. And if you get out to the edges and it gets dirty, it's just fine. When you're finished with your painting, you can just crumple up the paper and clean up the mess. So I'm going to show you another big example before we get started. Here is another similar example to what we're going to do today. We've got a little hill, we've got the tree trunk, we've got the green mix of blue and green and yellow here. We have a little sailboat, and you notice this is all done in dots. Here's another version of that. This one is a big painting, and it has lots of dots. But again, we have some green and yellow mixed together to make this color of the hill. We have, can't really tell, but there's yellow and brown and like even some red and blue to make kind of a purpley shadow bit on the tree trunk. We've got the blue water, but it's got some green and yellow mixed in. We've got the orange land behind us here. It's got a mix of a few reds and yellows to make it into an orange. And then we have the sailboat. Okay. And now let's try and make a little mini version of this painting for ourselves. Okay. Let's begin our little landscape pointillism painting. So I have my paints open. My lids are here because it's a good place to leave your Q-tips when you're not using them. And then we're going to copy a version of this onto our little square. So I'm going to start by making a curved green hillside. And I'm going to give us 2 tree trunks. And I'm just going to use a line because when we use the paint, it'll be nice and thick. It'll be thicker than the line anyway, so we'll get a good sized tree trunk. I'm going to make our horizon line, which is, this is for the water. And then I think I want some hills, some orange. We're going to do some just curvy hills like that. Okay. Go a little beach here. And then we're gonna give the shape of our tree. It can be any shape you like. There's my tree. I'm gonna leave a little bit of space right here to put a cloud. We'll put some white there and only white. And then let's do a very simple triangle and a boat. So not a rectangle, we're just going to give the boat a little, like the top line's a little bigger than the other ones. And it doesn't need that much detail because the dots we're going to make are going to be nice and big anyway. Okay, so yours doesn't need to look exactly like this, but here's a good start. Okay, we've got hill, water, trees, and some, save a little spot of white here so we can put a cloud in. Okay. So what I see here on this hill is I see yellow to start with, and then I see green dots on top, so we get kind of a light green because this green that's here is not really grass green. It doesn't look much like a green that you would get in a grass. So I dip my paint in here, and I'm rolling it around on the edge just a little bit so it's not too dripping with paint. So I'm going to do my outline first. And we're going to go dot, dot, dot. Now I want you to notice that we're going up and down and not back and forth. This is making dots and circles and not stripes or lines with our brush or Q-tips. And I'm going to give it some yellow. Okay, and then I'm going to leave my yellow right there. I'm going to get a new Q-tip, and I'm going to get a little, just a tiny bit of green. In fact, I'm going to wipe a little off the edge so I don't get too much. And then I'm going to spread my dots out here to start. Oh, a little more. Ooh, that seems like too big of a dot. And if you think like, oh, that's too big of a dot, just go over it a few more times and spread that color out. But I'm not spreading it by pushing it. I'm spreading it by going up and down. So there's our hillside. Right like that. Okay. Now we're going to move to another section and give this just a little bit of a moment to dry. Why don't we do our sky? Oh no, let's do our hill. So I want my hill to be orange. So what do colors make orange? Red and yellow. So I'm going to start with a red hill, and I'm going to make the curves at the top of the hill. And then I'm going to make the bottom. You'll notice you'll need to have your fingers. The paper is small, so you need to find a place to put your fingers so that you can keep it from bouncing around because the Q-tip kind of sticks to the paper when you pull it up. Okay, and then I want to make the beach kind of yellow. So there's a little line for yellow beach. So let's go yellow beach. And it's okay if it gets a little bit of red in it. And then what we're going to do is get a little more yellow and mix it on top of the red hills, which then makes them orange. Okay. All right, there's our orange hills. And let's see, this water here is a mix of blues and greens. So let's start out with the blue. And remember, we've got our sailboat here, so let's go around. I'm going to start by going around my sailboat so I don't forget. I practiced this once already before and I forgot to leave a space for my sailboat. And you can paint it later, but it didn't come out quite like I wanted. And that's the thing about art. Sometimes it doesn't turn out like we want. We kind of have to just improvise and do what we can to change it. Or make it say, oh, nope, I meant to do that. Okay, so here we have our blue, and I'm going to find the edges of this blue. So here's the edges of the beach, the edge of that tree. I'm going to spread around. I'm going to find the dark spots. And then I've got a little water on this side, so I'm going to put my water, a bit of water there. And then this is a mix of blue and green because that looks like the sky. And in order to make it more like water, water has a green, sometimes has green, blue-green mixed in. So I'm going to find a safe place to put my fingers. And I'm going to mix in some blue. Sorry, mix in some green. There you go. That looks more like water now, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm going to let the sailboat part dry so that it doesn't keep mixing my colors. So now let's make a sky. So the sky is going to be some light blue. So let's put just some, spread the dots out. I'm going to avoid my area where I have a cloud. I'm going to spread out some blue until the paint starts to get thin on the Q-tip, and then go a little more. Ooh, and even though the Q-tip starts to get dry, we're going to keep going. Maybe a teeny bit more paint. Oops, there's a big dark dot. Okay, so now what I want to do is take a little bit of white and mix it before the blue dries. Let's put a little white in with the blue sky and let it be white. And then actually what I'm going to do is get some clean white and just put it where my cloud should be. And then I'm not going to go over that part again. I'm just going to go around it. And so it doesn't have to be painted perfectly like a cloud, but when we're finished, you'll have a little lighter area that looks like a wispy cloud. So notice I'm going all the way out to the edges of the paper. And we're going to make some blue around here. Okay, so we have a sky. Now we're going to do our tree. And our tree is a mix of greens and blues and yellow. But we're going to start by making a natural green. So we're going to do yellow and blue make green. And where this one is more yellow than green, we're going to go the other way around. So let's put yellow all the way around. I gotta put my finger down on it to keep it from getting everywhere. Okay, there's yellow. We're gonna do a little bit of blue. Ooh, that's a lot of blue. So I'm not gonna go back in the blue again. I'm gonna keep dotting this together until we get it to mix together into green. See how I push that big bot? Keep dotting, keep dotting. Okay, now let's do a layer of green on top of the whole thing so we get lots of different colored leaves. I'm going to go around the outside edge of my tree. Down the center here. And it's okay if you have to touch your painting and hold it down, because the paint is sticky and it makes it fly up a little bit. There's my tree. And then I want to make my tree trunk, and I'm going to use a little bit of black. And this is true for most paintings. Black always goes a really long way. So I'm going to spread out my dots a lot. And I've only used a teeny bit, and I'm going to go back up. And then when I start to run out of black, it's getting a little gray. I'm gonna do a little bit of a shadow. So it's only a tiny bit of black. I'm just gonna put a little shadow under my tree. Like that. What do we think? Okay. And last but not least, I would like to do our sailboat. And I think I want my sailboat to be purple. But this is really, so I'm gonna use the clean end of a Q-tip. And actually, blue is the strong color, so let's start with red. And we're gonna put little dots, make a red boat. And so we left a little spot for the water. And now I'm just gonna put the hull of the boat and the sail. And then I'm gonna go over it with just a teeny, teeny, tiny bit of blue and make it mix, 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 tiny dots, tiny dots. And then this red and blue makes a little purple sailboat. There we are. And so when you're finished, you should have a little landscape. It looks like this. Okay, let's try a little still life of an apple. The first thing I'm going to do is give myself an apple shape. And it's not just a circle. We're going to give a little sketch of the top of the apple, kind of a little bit of a heart shape. I'm going to give it a bottom. Maybe I want it a little rounder. And it's going to need a stem. And we'll put a leaf up here, just like that. Okay, so we have just a little apple shape. And it's not really that important that it's perfect because we are going to paint it all in. And the painting, because it's dots, doesn't need to be perfect either. So the first thing we're going to do is outline the apple with our red. Just an outline. And while we're painting, let's think about where the light is coming from in our painting. And I'm going to say, because this is where my window is, the light is coming from this side. So the light is shining this way. So that means there's going to be a brighter shape here, and it's going to be darker. So the light is here, it'll be brighter here, and it'll be darker on this side. So what I want to do is I'm going to make a circle and leave it blank. And the reason for that, so we're not going to paint inside this circle. And the reason for that is later on, we're going to add lighter colors to give the apple a little bit of a highlight so it has some three-dimensional shape, just a little bit. Okay, so we got our apple here. Right now, this does not look much like an apple because it is red and it kind of has the shape of an apple, but it doesn't have some of the more important details that makes it an apple for us. Okay. So now we have that there. Now we're going to take some yellow and I'm going to give a little bit of highlight across the top of the apple here. And I'm going to add some yellow to this side. And what color do we get when we have red and blue mixed together? We get purple. So instead of using black to make our darker part of the apple, we're going to use just a little light dot on this side of the apple to make it a little darker. To make the dark side. I'm going to do fewer dots as I get closer to the middle. Look at that. I have one of my red dots got away from me. Let's see if we can fix that. There we go. some of the white. Here's a clean Q-tip. And it's okay if a little bit of the pink mixes in, but we want to make a white section so that it has a highlight. See how we got a little lighter bit on our apple? And then there's also this little indent here where the stem is. Why don't we give a little bit of blue there too? Because there's always a little bit of a shadow where, just a little bit of a shadow there. Okay. And then we need a stem, so we're going to use a little bit of black, and this is another one of those things. Blacks can go a long way. So we're going to go black stem. Oh, that's way too black. Oh, no, that's good. Okay. And then we're going to use our green, and we're going to give ourselves a leaf. And then I think the leaf needs a little bit of the stem down the center. Maybe it needs a little yellow. What do you think? A little more interest. Okay. And then let's give a little shadow underneath. And the shadow doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. Now, do we think that our apple needs to have a background? I kind of do. I think it's important to me when we do paintings that I like to have I like to have it painted edge to edge. So we're just going to give, not all the way, but we're just going to fill in the white so that it's not, see, my paper's moving around. It just looks like a more complete piece of work if you get some paint out to the edges. So I'm going to be really careful to avoid that black, because if you touch the black, it's going to get on it spreads around really easily. All right. And I think we need a little bit more yellow in my highlight. And there you have an apple still life. And there you go. I hope you had fun experimenting with your paints. Please be sure to put all of the lids on your paints, because you should still have quite a bit of paint left, and it would be really nice if we could plan and do another painting project together. So we're going to put these lids on, maybe have an adult check that they're sealed up properly, and save them with your art supplies so we can do some more painting in the future. Thank you, Bagby Barracudas.